Okay, last time we looked at carbohydrates, and we saw that carbohydrates are a major source of energy for most things, and carbohydrates are things like sugars. And we can find them in things like glucose that plants make through photosynthesis, sucrose, which is your table sugar that you eat, and starches, which are a polysaccharide that plants form in order to store large amounts of sugar. The human example was glycogen. We also know that plants and animals use carbohydrates for different structural purposes. Plants use cellulose in plant cell walls, and chitin is found in the exoskeleton of insects. Carbohydrates are made up of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen in a 1 to 2 to 1 ratio. Okay, today we're talking about the second macromolecule, and that is the lipids. So last time we looked at carbohydrates, the sugars. Now we're looking at lipids. Okay, lipids can be involved in long-term energy storage. They have more carbon-hydrogen bonds, and in these carbon-hydrogen bonds, most of the energy is stored. And they have more of them than carbohydrates. When we think of lipids, you should think automatically of the word fat. It's a kind of fat or a kind of oil, or on some plants it can be like a waxy cover. With the oils and fats, you've probably seen this when you've mixed oil and water in the past in elementary school. They're insoluble in water. Okay? They don't dissolve, they form a layer in water, and that's because it is a non-polar molecule. With solubility, we usually say that like dissolves like, so polar substances dissolve polar substances. So for example, sugar and salt dissolve well because there's a slight polarity there in water, where something like oil will not. Because of this insolubility in water, this allows it to make a good cell membrane. So when we talk more about cells, we'll see about the ability to keep water and fluids inside the cell and to keep other things outside of the cell as well, to maintain a good water balance within the cell. So lipids can be used, as we said, for long-term energy storage. They can be used as a form of insulation. On the side here, this is a neuron. A neuron, it's a cell found in the nervous system. It transmits electrical impulses from your brain through your nervous system, allows organs and your body to move and to function different ways. The conducting material, the axon here, this long, thin-like, thread-like structure here in the middle, is covered with a fatty covering called the myelin sheath, and it insulates the electrical charge that flows through the axon. We'll look at that more later in the second semester. It also provides coatings and waterproofing for various plants. Cell membranes, as we said before, are made up of a special kind of lipid called phospholipids and a phospholipid bilayer, so 2 layers of these lipids, these fats with attached phosphate groups on them. Okay, Q10 in plants helps plants retain water. Okay, so the basic structure of a lipid is you've got this glycerol backbone. Glycerol is an alcohol, and then you've got 3 fatty acid chains. And a lot of the energy is stored in these fatty acid chains. Okay, so you've got a glycerol, and then you've got an attached, this is an ester group, but that doesn't matter too much for what we're studying. These long kind of fatty acid chains are on there. Okay, we'll look at this more when we talk about cells, but these represent the cell membrane, and they're composed of specialized lipids called phospholipids in the cell membrane. And the great thing about them is that they are non-polar, so that they really don't like water in that sense. not liking water, they're hydrophobic, and so they keep the liquid material inside the cell and they keep other liquid material outside the cell. There are two kinds of fat. There's saturated fats and unsaturated fats. When we talk about saturated, we mean every possible space around the carbon atom is filled up with a hydrogen. So there's no double bonds because every one is filled up. These are the ones that remain solid at room temperature, things like butter, some cheeses, things like that, different fats from meats. They are considered the enemy in that they are not good for your general health. They're also, because everything is together, they form straight molecules. The unsaturated fat means that it's got at least a double bond in it, and the double bond causes some bending. These are usually considered to be good fats that we need, and they are liquid at room temperature. Okay, please practice the vocabulary.